Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this session and found some useful tips there. We are now ready with another exciting session, New Technologies. Future is Web 3.0. Um, Moderating this session today is David Engel, FinTech Business Development Manager at AWS, and joining him as panelists are Arun Devarajan, co-founder Mohash, Ankit Arora, co-founder Metaski, Hanisha Vaswani, Managing Partner Majority, and Sanju Sonikurian, co-founder and CTO Wall. Delighted to have all of them with us. A very warm welcome to all of you, and over to you, David.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Can I just ask all the panelists for a quick thumbs up? Make sure that everybody can hear everybody else.
Yes.
All right, good to go. Thank you. So first of all, thank you to all of the audience for joining this. Thank you to all of the panelists for joining as well. We have a very exciting panel exploring Web3 and how it's impacting both the future of finance and the future of startups in general. So very quickly, I'll introduce myself, and then I want to get a bit of the panelists to introduce themselves as well. So I'm David Engel. I'm the FinTech Business Development Manager at AWS for EMEA. My role is to accelerate our customers' growth, either through top-line revenue, through product acceleration, or through brand awareness. And we have people like me all over the world, as well as in India. So if anybody needs help with any of those things, please do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. What I'd like to do is go around the panel quickly and get a quick overview from the panelists, who they are, a little bit about what their businesses do, and then we're going to go down the rabbit hole of Web3. So I'll go in order of my screen. Arun, if you can go first, then Ankit, then Sanju, and then Hanisha last, please.
Hi, I'm Arun. I'm co-founder of Mohash. Mohash is a DeFi protocol for emerging market debt. In plain English, what we are trying to do is like trying to arrange a global capital for Indian small businesses. That's where our heart lies.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me and organizing this. I'm Ankit, the co-founder of Metasky, where we work with brands, influencers, and creators to form decentralized communities with the help of easy-to-use Web3 tools like wallets and community platform.
Hi, my name is Sanju. I co-found this. I'm the founder and CTO of a company called Vault. We are a crypto lending and trading platform. We are looking to accelerate the journey towards decentralized money by enabling more banking touchpoints in the crypto space.
Great. And Hanisha, please. Hanisha, are you able to hear us? Oh, I think we've lost her. Hopefully she'll hop back on and she can introduce herself as well. But Anisha is an early stage impact investor with a very strong focus on the Web3 space.
Hi, am I audible? I'm so sorry.
Yep, we can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Hanisha. I'm the founding partner of Majority. Majority is an early stage deep tech impact fund that hopes to fund startups that help people at the bottom of the pyramid. So Web3 is definitely one of the technologies we are watching out for eagerly.
Wonderful, thank you. So where I'd like to begin is understanding why you decided to solve the problems that you've decided to solve using Web3, because all of these problems could be solved one way or another with Web2 technology, with investment apps, or with debt funding, or building branding tools. So first thing is why Web3, and we'll go in opposite order this time. Let's start with the investment perspective. Hanisha, why have you chosen to focus your investments on Web3 technologies? All right, I think we're having some technical difficulties. We'll go around the room. Sanju, would you mind going next, please?
Sure. So when we're growing up, I come from a tier 3 city in India. I've been on the wrong side of capitalism.
I I'm so very sorry for that. Murphy's striking very badly today. To answer your question, David, three or four things, right? One, we see this as the beginning. We see Web3 as the beginning of
Sorry, I think we're still having technical difficulties. Sanju, let's continue with your story, and then Anisha,
Sure.
we'll come back to Anisha when she has better connection.
For sure. So yeah, to continue from what I was trying to say, I come from the wrong side of capitalism my entire life. So the way to solve for, and one of the things that I felt in the early days of being in the space was that we didn't really have access to capital or banking infrastructure that someone on the other side of capitalism typically have access to. And to solve for banking was one of the core reasons why we started up Vault in its very early days. Why Web3 is very, very, I think it answers for itself. Crypto Web3 solves for some of the fundamental problems of banking in every way. It solves for the inherent infrastructural problems in the banking ecosystem throughout the world. And we believe that there's a lot we can do as the space evolves. I keep on repeating this to everyone that I meet, that the crypto, as we see it, I believe, is not going to be where it's going to be over the long term. Some of the best minds are working on it. It's evolving significantly. So the with the kind of evolution that goes into the space, I believe that crypto does really stand a chance to relook at the way we look at banking over the long term.
Thanks for that. Ankit, can I ask you the same question, please?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I've worked in the finance side of crypto for some time, and for me, the motivation to get started on my own in Web3 was more towards communities and just observing how communities can effectively get empowered to make effective change, right? So what I believe in is that communities are actually much more wiser for collective incentives than what a corporation might be. So new forms of organization of how we all can work together, I think, will have a larger than what we anticipate impact on how we get things done, right? So just the sheer mechanics of how we cooperate, that is what attracts me to Web3, and it offers the most effective set of technologies to help us coordinate effectively and to coordinate capital with causes most effectively around the globe.
And Arun?
So the problem that I'm going after is about making deep pools of capital, low interest capital available to Indian small businesses. And logically, it means I need to be able to raise capital from all over the world. What Web3 is offering is, thanks to the ERC20 standard and the EVM standard, is that I just write to a single standard I raise from all over the world. Right, and that's very powerful compared to incumbent traditional finance ways, or even in fintech, where I have to go do a separate integrated with each bank in a single country and things like that. A single standard all over the world is unbelievably amazing. Second thing is that Web3 has invented something called programmable assets or programmable money, whatever you want to call that. It means that for me to bootstrap and scale this is way faster by incentivizing early adopters. So we also have, say, joint ventures in the traditional finance ecosystem, where one part is like the early adopter customer. But now I can have 100 customers in my early adopter community, and I could frictionlessly incentivize all of them to help me build that, bootstrap that, and grow that. So those are my strongest reasons why I chose Web3 for the problem that I'm going after.
Thank you. All right, Anisha, we'll give it another go. It looks like you maybe on your phone. Hopefully that'll work better.
Yeah, hopefully that will work better. Sorry for that. Yeah.
That's all right. So if you would just give an overview, why have you decided to focus your capital investment thesis on Web3 companies?
So I mean, in terms of helping the a large majority of people, something decentralized, where I mean, what has happened with traditional banking, for example? I mean, if I take an example of something in fintech, traditional banking has typically not been able to lend to people with no credit history. Whereas if we are looking at a newer if we are looking at a newer way of bringing people like that, people who are underbanked or unbanked onto a system like Web3, we may be able to use transactions that traditional bankers or other institutions have not considered as creditworthy or credit histories, and help them actually build build a case for example, getting access to credit or access to services that they did not get because they were not a part of the ecosystem. So examples like that, I think, are reasons why we would want to get into this space.
Great, thank you. So I think that you guys are hitting on a few topics. So better for users, better for governance, Sankeet, what we're talking about in terms of decentralized governance, better for incentives. So Arun, when you talk about how you incentivize early adopters, maybe through token airdrops or things like that, and obviously better than for kind of scale and for scaling to marginalized communities. I want to try to go deep on each of those because I think that they're really important points to understand the world of Web3. So Arun, you're actually building one of the solutions that I think Hanisha is talking about, which is how do you help people without access to credit or without access to capital get that access? Can you actually just talk through who your typical user would be and what their experience is and actually being onboarded into Mohesh and actually taking credit, paying back that credit, and even starting to build a revolving line? I'd be curious to understand that, please.
There are two users whom we are bridging. One is a global investor, and second is a borrower, emerging markets. We could start with India first. In India, let's look at the Kirana store. If he has to, typically he gets credit from his supplier. A supplier cost of credit is typically higher than what the banking system offers because the banking system's cost of capital is deposits, which is really low interest rates. Now, if you could replace informal finance with formal finance, he basically more small business will grow up and they grow faster and they be profitable and things like that. That's the potential impact we're shooting for. Now, currently, if a small business goes to a formal finance institution, the friction to get that finance is high. The transaction cost is pretty high, and the risk appetite is not sufficient enough for the size of our country. For instance, 70% of India's risk capital is bank-driven. Banks do a fantastic job for certain kind of low-risk cohorts, but small businesses are typically in a higher risk cohort compared to, say, large business like airlines or salaried employees, right? So for that, banks are not sufficient. They're a good start, but not sufficient. So for instance, small business credit cap in India, $350 billion. We can assume that $100 billion will come from bank capital. Someone else has to give the $250 billion. And we are building a debt mutual fund to get that money from all over the world. Now, what does that mean? The small business will still go to the existing finance system, which is like the NBFC. And the NBFC needs cash. Currently, he gets it from banks, which is not sufficient. So we are going to give money to the NBFC. Right.
And speaking about friction, so a bank would say that part of that friction is to be able to protect borrowers. So that friction is some of it's by technology, some of it's by design. So how does Web3 help? And maybe we want to talk about incentives a little bit here. How does Web3 enable your solution in a way that both protects the borrowers and, because you're effectively creating a pool of creditors as well, how does it protect them?
So the way we're going to protect our investors, in our case, it'll be global investors, not banks, is that by virtue of being able to raise capital for all over the world, I'm able to build a mutual fund in India, right? And a mutual fund which buys into NBFC debt, and a bunch of NBFCs have RBI protection of at least 15% equity, and that's why I'm able to protect the investors. Right, I have 2 or 3 layers of protection: diversification, regulated guarantees, and of course the NBFC's underwriting quality. Right, I have 3 layers of protection, and that's how I'm basically protecting the investor over here. I'm offering a low risk debt mutual fund to the entire world. Right, that's the part where I'm using Web3, not in the India deployment side. Yeah,
understood. And Sanju, if we stick on the customer experience side of things, how is the experience different from your customers who want to either stake their tokens or invest in crypto? How does it differ using your product, using Vault, relative to using a traditional investment vehicle, whether it's an investment app or going through an investment advisor or something like that? Like, what are the benefits? And I'm thinking, I get that it's digital, digital is the way of the future. Why is Web3 actually making it better?
So there are two aspects to it. The audience that you're talking about primarily, David, are the traditional investors who have access to that kind of investment tools and vehicles that lets them earn that sort of interest. The where we come in typically, or where we started off in the early days, was to enable credit market for the people who were sitting on or believing in this asset, and they were on it for the long term. So that means they were sitting on a large amount of capital, which they believe is going to be the future, and unfortunately, it's sitting there without earning interest. Obviously, the underlying assets value is changing, but more than that, it also gives. But it's still especially when you're deploying that capital to a centralized platform, one of the biggest things there is that you are trusting that other platform, and you needed to be rewarded for it. So that's how we started off. But to go on the other side of the, where how are we going to be able to give a better rate of interest, because obviously it's a global market. There is obviously a need for capital to be deployed. If you look at our interest rates, we offer close to 12% on USD equivalent stable coins, which is extremely high if you compare it to the traditional USD interest rates available in the market. So because it's a credit hungry market, and that we have access to, and it's a global platform, and as Arun pointed out in the beginning, that's programmable money, all that combined together to give you an ecosystem that lets us deploy this capital very efficiently across the world, to gather this high rate of returns back to our customers.
Great, thank you. Moving on now, Ankit, you mentioned the importance of governance, or the potential improvement of governance with Web3. So if you can first just give a quick overview about Metaskaya and the platform that you're building, and then what I'd love to know is how the potential of Web3 governance or decentralized governance is actually being leveraged to help your customers that are using your platform.
Sure. So the way we position ourselves to our customers is as a bridge to Web3. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Is that people are at various levels in their understanding and in their motivation to dive deep into this space. So what we do is we work with people who stand for strong ideas, who are interested in going vertically deep down this space. So you're not going to see people, governing massive organizations on day one. What you might see is somebody, let's say, just simply drops some NFTs, which are some digital objects. And slowly, as the engagement and the loop of, let's say, utilities that you provide through the NFTs, they increase, slowly you start to decentralize more and more functions of your community, right? And one of those functions might be, for example, managing the treasury. Now, let's say I'm a non-profit, and if I have the ability to manage my treasury transparently, where everybody can see instant accounting of every single rupee that has been spent, right? That just helps build that much more trust with the stakeholders of the decentralized community, right? So we are providing a platform to help them all the way through this stack, whether it's a simple NFT drop to start with, to graduating from there to slowly into governance through the NFTs, into completely decentralizing the treasury of your community, right? So that's kind of the ladder that we want to create for people who have the motivation and the will to make change and adopt this brave new set of technologies.
And Arun, you've launched a Mohash token, which really is the real life manifestation of what Ankit's talking about in terms of the ability for users to actually to become owners. So to switch just from a user to an owner, and obviously then align the growth incentives with the business. Can you just talk about how the Mohash token works, and what I want the audience to really take away from it is why a specific company would create a token, their own form, their own asset, as a way of helping to accelerate adoption and motivate users.
So let's look at it this way: if I'm trying to go after the same problem without the governance token incentives, what I'll have to do is, to get my first 18 months, first 2 years of capital, I need to find people who should be incentivized to taking a bet on me, right? Now, if I do in the current way, I'll have to speak to 20, 30 different large enterprises with the hope of at least one of them taking a bet on me, right? Which is possible, but that means it'll just take way longer. And the friction is very high. That means something that could in Web3 could happen in 3 months will take 2 to 3 years. And at each layer of friction, which basically means something that we hope to do in 4 years could happen in 10 years. And that means a less interesting business on associated consequences. What we are really doing is like with the governance token as an idea, what we're really doing is like guys who are early adopters are going to get governance tokens and for the amount of money that they are giving into the protocol, right? Proportional to how much money they're putting in the protocol. Given that they're doing that, I will, and because the friction to sell this over the internet is very, very low compared to traditional finance methods, because the friction is very low, I will be able to attract a pool of capital from all over the world. So I have people on my cap table who are in about at least more than a dozen countries all over India. Asia, Europe, probably Latin America, Central America, and United States, right? That's what that reduction of friction allows me to do to bootstrap my journey and hence accelerate my journey as we go along. That's the thinking.
So effectively, it becomes a way of crowdsourcing capital, but with a fully liquid asset, as opposed to a share registry or something like that.
Yes. You're getting effectively a public market quality asset in terms of liquidity and global pool of capital for what is effectively a startup.
And Hanisha, Hanisha, as an investor, so there's the traditional form of capital, operating capital, which venture capital gives. You can sometimes give debt capital, whether it's venture debt or just traditional debt. Now you have this third asset class, these tokens. As an investor, how do you think about the types of assets that you're investing? Obviously, you're investing capital, but then the type of assets that you're receiving, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, so you're going to get a yield, whether it's tokens. How do you think about that?
Again, I mean, I will only be able to speak about our fund in this case. I do realize that other larger funds have moved into, issuing capital as crypto and also receiving it. But so far, I mean, since we are dealing only with the India market, we are playing it a little conservative and not, receiving any assets in crypto. I mean, we don't intend to in the next few years. We'd like to wait for a while and watch how the market plays out to see what the acceptance of the tokens will be, and then make a stronger bet.
And the other three panelists, if you guys are willing to share, are any of your venture investors willing to accept tokens as part of their return, or are they only interested in equity in the business?
Yeah, I speaking from my experience, there is definitely like a bit of a gap between these two sets, but I think the ecosystem has matured to a point that token based investments are relatively quite easy these days, and that's what I also ended up doing. There is a long tail of information and kind of all these uncertainties that you have to sort out, but I think it's a good time for entrepreneurs to raise money on the back of tokens. It's a win-win for all the sides as far as I see. Yep.
Okay. We've only got a few minutes left. Oh, apologies. Go ahead, Sanju.
No problem. Unfortunately for us, we took a different route. Even from the beginning, we have said a very no to having a utility token of our own. It was a pure strategic decisions that we have took. In terms of LPs out there, I'm sure that a majority of them are exploring ways to accept deploying capitals in tokens and are able to approach it properly. But because we wanted to go down the route of being regulated across the jurisdictions that we wanted to work in, it opens up a lot of regulatory hurdles for us if we go down that route. So we have, in the beginning itself, took that decision that unless and until we can add a lot more value to our users by adding a token, we won't have it.
Understood. All right, we've got about a minute remaining, so I thought we would take a bit of a poll of you guys. So if we say that crypto as an asset was the first real breakthrough in terms of blockchain, NFTs as collectibles, you could make the argument as the next big breakthrough in terms of blockchain and user adoption. What do you guys think is going to be the next big adoption, mass adoption of Web3 technologies? And Hanisha, we'll start with you, and we'll go around.
So one thing could be verifying identity kind of documents, verifying so anything from your educational records to everything. I mean, can we put publicly available information on the blockchain so that it can be verified? So, for example, today, if you had to go to get, if I had as a university student to go to another country, there's really no way for a university in another country to really know whether my university is attested and all that. So, public identities might be the next frontier for this one.
Sanju?
The space of bringing it for a little bit. And, the space significantly evolved and kept surprising me every turn of the way on how it evolved. Having said that, the way we look at it, at least in terms of crypto for money or solving for the retail or the finance sector, there we believe that there's going to be a larger overlap between the real world assets and the crypto world over the long term. And that adoption of crypto in the real world cases, including payments, including cross-border transactions, and that becoming very common to how you would otherwise use a UPI in India, is I believe there's going to be a huge potential, and that's where the long term for crypto lies, according to us.
And if people are interested in a real world example, I suggest you Google Circle and Solana. They're actually now building this solution and have launched it in market, which I think is a great example. Ankit, go ahead, please.
Sure. So for me, the paradigm shift that is incoming, let's say in the next year or two, is going to be a shift from looking at NFTs as collectibles to looking at NFTs as just objects in the digital world, right? So that shift is going to basically change a lot of things for how the industry is seeing NFTs today, and how NFTs and tokens are going to play a part in governing decentralized communities. The importance of that will keep increasing, and we'll keep seeing more and more impactful, mission-driven projects which are completely decentralized, governed. So that is set a great example for the rest of the world, and I think that is the next frontier: decentralized organizations and tokenized communities and collective governance.
Arun? I think you're muted, Arun.
So the total amount of real world debt within crypto is less than $1 billion. The total amount of real world debt is $100 trillion. Let's just focus on this. This was big enough.
Fantastic. That's a total addressable market any investor can get behind.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for your time. I'm really honored and humbled to get to interview such wonderful innovators who are really building the future. So well done to all of you. Thank you to the audience for joining. I hope everybody's taken something away from this. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.